The pros play.
KCDC San Antonio.
Brandon Medina and Michael Jimenez are the Fantasy Gods.
Welcome to the Church of Fantasy. This is the Fantasy God Show. I'm your man, Brandon Medina, here with my main man, Michael Jimenez. How are we doing, my brother? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, and dearly beloved, we are here to celebrate this thing called fantasy football. We're just 24 days and 13 hours away from the start of the NFL season.
Oh my goodness gracious. It is picking up, and it is picking up fast. We have lots to talk about. We're talking about Madden ratings and how they correspond to this year and how they corresponded last year. Lots to go into with that because, Mike, they were completely off on a lot of things. But also we're talking about our top 5 sleepers. Last week, you may remember, we did our top 5 quarterback, running back, wide receivers, and tight ends. Now we're talking sleepers, people you can find in those late rounds, maybe even on the waiver wire after a week or two. So we'll be talking about that and also some draft tips, expectations, and how we personally draft. So feel free to let us know what you're thinking, maybe some questions you might have. Hit us up on the Kielbasa Bacon phone lines at 210-656-ESPN. And once again, that's 210-656-3776. Michael, let's talk some Madden, baby. How did these ratings really pan out when it comes from gaming to real life?
Let's just go ahead and say that if they don't pan out. The reason why we're having this conversation is we were talking about how do we come together and actually basically formulate a strategy for the draft, right?
Right.
So I wanted to take a look at video games because, that's big business. The players, they really try to get the best rating possible. And I was taking a look at last year. Man, they were off completely in every single category, every single position.
No bueno.
So taking a look at it, for when it comes to quarterbacks, when they listed their top 10 quarterbacks last year, only 3 were in the top 10 when it came to points. That was Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers. But they missed out on the top 3, which were Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, and Jameis Winston. It's just remarkable how bad of a job they did.
Now, with that, do you think it made sense, considering that usually these rankings come out in the summer before the game? Madden usually comes out in August. And with that, Lamar Jackson last year in 2019 was really not expected to do what he did and not expected to be the player he was. So I feel like we can kind of let them off the hook with that one. Do you agree?
I agree. He had shown some flashes in his rookie year, but I think the problem with Lamar Jackson was he did so bad in the playoffs that people kind of just wrote him off.
Yeah.
But right now, if you take a look at Lamar Jackson's stats from what he did last year, the maturity that he's had over the past year and a half, I would say that he's easily one of the top 2 or 3 players in the draft this upcoming year.
Okay, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think when you look at fantasy football, the dude won people leagues. He took me to 2 championships, won me 1. So the dude really was an incredible player, constant fantasy points, all the time. You were looking at least 25 points a game. He was dominant, very much along the same lines as Patrick Mahomes when he first started getting going. Those 2 are usually going to be the 2 quarterbacks off the board. And it's not surprising. And usually those land in the second round to third round. It depends. But I've seen them go high in the first round within, the first 10, 12 picks. Me and you, Michael, are very comfortable playing in those 10 to 12 team leagues. So I know, have you experienced anybody maybe gunning for quarterback very early? And what do you think about taking one of those guys too early? Is that a positive, a negative? What do you think?
It depends on which quarterback you're talking about here. Okay, I think there's really only 2 that you take early, which is Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. And the reason why I was interested in the whole Madden theory earlier this week when we were looking into this was because it just proves to you that you win your fantasy league in rounds 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the draft. Because all of the players that were in their top 10 running backs, top 10 quarterbacks, they were the ones that were gone the first 3 rounds of the draft. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking a look at it right now for quarterbacks. Really, I can see Mahomes being that 5,000-yard passing quarterback again. But really, unless it's Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, hold off a little bit, at least until about the 3rd or 4th round before you even start thinking about drafting a quarterback.
Absolutely. We're talking quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers and tight ends later, and we're talking about some sleepers. So you might not need to take those guys in those first couple rounds. We might be able to get you somebody that's just as viable, just as useful later on in the draft. But let's talk more about these Madden ratings. Now with 2021 coming up, with the 2021 Madden coming up. What do you think about the ratings of maybe this year's Madden? Do you think they got it right now? Because right now the top 5 for quarterback are Patrick Mahomes at 99. Shout out Texas Tech, wreck 'em, baby. Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady. What do you think about those top 5? I know those last 2 are names that I'm sure you're not going to be super happy to have up there.
No, the top 3 are perfectly fine. They'll probably finish in the top 10 if they're healthy, right? I can't see Mahomes having a bad year if he's healthy. I can't see Lamar Jackson having a bad year if he's healthy. But, man, I'm really off the wagon when it comes to players like Drew Brees, which pains me because the Saints are my favorite team, right? It pains me to look at Drew Brees and go, yeah, I wouldn't want him as my quarterback. I wouldn't want Aaron Rodgers either. I think this is going to be the year where it started last year. It's going to continue this year where the new generation of quarterbacks come up. So when you're doing fantasy, you're really going to have to pay attention to some of these young guys because a lot of people here in San Antonio or in the South Texas area only focus on the NFC East or they only focus on the Cowboys. So we really need to pay attention to the AFC East. We need to pay attention to other divisions, other players that we're not familiar with instead of just drafting who we've heard of.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that's what a lot of people make mistakes in when it comes to your fantasy football draft. Let's get this out of the way. Do not just look for big name players. Everybody knows, players when it comes to running back like a Todd Gurley, a Le'Veon Bell, someone like that. Are those the best running backs in the draft? Absolutely not. So do not go fishing for old fish. You know what I mean? Let's look at the new crop of players. I'm definitely not going to be taking Todd Gurley over someone like an Aaron Jones or Derrick Henry if they're still available. I'm not taking Le'Veon Bell over a Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara. Although the name is there, the work rate will be there in New York for Le'Veon Bell and elsewhere for other running backs like a Todd Gurley. The work will be there, but the health might not be there. The consistency might not be there. They are fantasy legends on the back end. They're legends that have already had their legendary careers, legendary seasons. I think a lot of us get caught up in those big names, like even a Tom Brady. I could definitely see, especially me and you have friends. We have leagues that we've done for years, and we say it every show. There's weak links in every single league who go for those big name players. Someone's going to tell you, I guarantee you, Mike, Tom Brady, all those weapons. Are you kidding me? He's going to have a top 5 season, and they're going to draft him like the 3rd or 4th round and waste a pick. So that's what I'm saying. Those big name players are still going to be big name players, but the big playability might not be there. And if it is, just wait for them in the draft.
Right. This is all about stats. It's not about whether that team actually wins. It's about whether they put up any points for your team, right? Last year, 7 of the top 10 preseason running backs, 7 of the 10 did not even finish in the top 10. The only 3 that did were Zeke Elliott, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey. Here's the thing. You mentioned to me that you want to get somebody on the rise, right? What do I do for a living Monday through Friday? I do investments, right? It's all about buy low, sell high.
Right.
And that's the thing about fantasy football is that there's so many young players who are coming through right now who are in years 2, 3, and 4. Those are the ones that we need to be researching because those are the ones who are going to be the future stars. Part of my draft strategy is I like to look at players who are really under the age of 28, 29. Very rarely do you see me draft somebody 30 and older. Unless it's maybe a quarterback, I might do one that's 30, 32 years old. But more often than not, if it's a running back or receiver, I want to get them when they're young. I want to get them when they're on the rise. And I want to get them when no one's looking.
Okay, absolutely. I completely agree with that statement. And I think, like you said, when you're looking at, quarterbacks, running backs, whatever the case, on the rise, you want consistency. All of us want people who are going to be getting production value out of the pick. I mean, the thing is, when it comes to fantasy football, Mike, we're not talking about I need an absolute stud every single week. Sometimes when you're taking flyers, I just need you 1 week to win me a game. I don't need you the entire season to go off. Fantasy football in its prime fundamentals, Mike, is picking the best guys to win just week by week by week. And that it can be interchangeable. Maybe you have a couple running backs. Maybe you're like me and you, where we kind of look at scheduling and kind of change our players by that. The whole point is week by week. It doesn't matter the star power you have if you have Tom Brady and Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. Honestly, that squad right there is losing easily. No problem in the playoffs. you're not looking for that star power name. You're looking for a star power team that has consistency that maybe people are sleeping on. Because there's some teams, Mike, that when you look at them and you're about to face them in a week-by-week head-to-head, you're like, oh, I got them, no problem. All they have is Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones. Last year, you're like, okay, like week 2, you're like, this is no problem. I got this. And then they're just killing you. They're tearing it up. There's players who don't have maybe that star power that still have that output that can win you your championship.
Now, let me ask you this. Late rounds, let's say rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, are you drafting for need or to fill out your lineup, or are you drafting the best player available?
Here's the thing, Mike. A lot of our friends listen to this show, right? A lot of our friends in our leagues listen to this show. So I'm going to give a little bit of insight to what I'm doing. So when it comes to that rounds 10 to 13, I'll tell you what, I still think there's a lot to look at when it comes to need, whether it be, wildly enough, quarterback and tight end, I think, are deep where you can wait till those rounds, not waste a big...
So here's the thing. If you're doing with a fantasy league, my whole opinion on this is first 2-3 rounds, get the best players you have on the board, right? I try to fill in the gaps, rounds 4 through 7, 4 through 8. But then the later rounds, what I'm basically doing is I'm trying to figure out who's the best player available. I don't care if it fills out my lineup at all. What I am looking at doing at that point is having trade bait, okay? If I can get a good running back that just somehow slipped, or a good wide receiver that somehow slipped, I will take them. Last year, I took Lamar Jackson very late in the rounds. I didn't need him, but why did I take him? It's because he was there and he has the potential. So here's the thing. We are on ESPN San Antonio, 94.5 FM, 1250 AM. This is the Fantasy Gods. And we're going to come back in a moment and talk a little bit more about who we think the sleepers are for this upcoming draft. We're going to be taking a look at the top 5 sleepers in every position: running back, receiver, tight end, quarterback. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the Fantasy Gods.
Do you ever wonder how long you could make it financially if your paycheck were to stop due to an accident or illness? Visit callclark.com, as you don't have to wonder. The loss of your income could be devastating to you and your family. You could lose your home, automobiles, and other essentials. Don't let this happen to you and your family. You can insure your paycheck for less than 2% of your income. Do yourself a favor and contact Clark Ross with Coordinated Financial Group and learn more. Go to callclark.com to learn how to protect your paycheck today. Once again, callclark.com.
You're ready for some football, and when training camp's underway, I know we definitely are close, and I have the perfect crunch that'll get you back in the snacking game. Southern Recipe small batch pork rinds have the bold flavors you want, like Korean kimchi barbecue, cilantro lime, and more. Eat these low-carb bacony bites right out of the bag or crush them in low-carb recipes. Get them at H-E-B and go to southernrecipesmallbatch.com for your buy two, get one coupon. Southern Recipe Small Batch. It's a different kind of rind.
Cover 3 at Stone Oak in San Antonio is the place to be, whether you're looking to gather coworkers for lunch, dine with friends, or treat your sweetie to a fabulous dinner. This elegant restaurant offers ample seating with comfortable leather booths, tall cocktail tables, along with full-service dining at the bar, or you can enjoy a fun time out on the patio. So come to Cover 3 and experience dining, spirits, and sports.
Cover 3, 1806 North 1604 West, 210-479-9700.
The Texas Rangers play right here on 1250 ESPN San Antonio and 94.5 FM.
This is Joey Gallo.
And now Gallo swings, hits a bomb down the right field line. It's hooking, and that ball is history.
This is Elvis Andrus.
Swinging a chopper over the mound near second. Rookie has a little flip to Elvis for one. On the run, throw to first, double play.
Texas Rangers Baseball, brought to you by GPS of Texas, gpsoftexas.com.
Your home for the Texas Rangers. 1250 ESPN San Antonio.
And 94.5 FM.
We inherited this business from our father.
Who got it from his father.
We needed an emergency preparedness plan in case of fire, cyber attack,
or anything.
So we went to ready.gov and got free checklists, templates, and more to be prepared. Thanks to ready.gov, we worry less about keeping Rizzo and Sons in business.
Only it should be Rizzo and Grandsons.
And granddaughter.
Right.
Go to ready.gov for details on creating an emergency preparedness plan. Becoming a success is hard work. Protecting it isn't. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Ad Council, and this station.
What is going on, San Antonio? What is going on? What is going on? Welcome to the Church of Fantasy. I'm your man, Brandon Big Papi Medina, here with my main man, Michael Jimenez. I apologize, guys. Listen, we are in a COVID-19 time right now, so my mic cut out the last segment, so Michael had to be the rock star there, carry the squad a little bit. With this. Mike had to be prime Tom Brady and carry the team a little bit, so I appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much. We are going to be talking about our top quarterback and running backs when it comes to sleeper value. Last week, go listen, ESPN.com/audio vote. We were listening and talking about the best quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends for the fantasy football draft. Now we're talking sleepers for those exact positions, as well as in the next segment, we're going to be talking about our own ways of drafting, little tips and tricks for you guys too. But quarterbacks, running backs, Mike, let's hear what you got for quarterbacks. Run through your top five, and then I'll give you my top five, good sir.
This is the top five.
Give me that top five. Let me hear it.
Okay, so first of all, this is the top five sleepers, right?
Right.
So this is basically players that I'm not going to be starting week one, but I want to have them on my team, and I want to draft them in later rounds. Okay. So the top five for me for sleepers would be Joe Burrow from Cincinnati, Daniel Jones of the Giants, Drew Lock of the Broncos.
Wow.
And two backups, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton.
Ooh, those are two. I like Jameis Winston more than I like the Andy Dalton pick, but I can see why you did that. I understand. For me, I like a little bit more consistency, but also some surprise probably come-ups. Number one for me, and people are going to hate this, and I want them to. I want to get people riled up a little bit on a Sunday. Yeah. Cam Newton, for me, is number one. I think Cam Newton is healthy, has something to prove, signed a one-year deal. That means he's looking to get his money. He has Julian Edelman and the best coach probably in history. So I think for Cam Newton, there's the sky's the limit. A lot of potential there in the late rounds. I'm getting him in around 11 or 12 sometimes. So look for him. Baker Mayfield, we talked about this last time. He was one of my big sleepers in our first show we did. Baker Mayfield has plenty of targets to throw to, has Kareem Hunt back, has Nick Chubb, of course, has Austin Hooper in the mix. There's no reason Baker Mayfield should not be at least a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football. Big Ben Roethlisberger, Mike. Whoa, remember him?
No, thank you.
Remember this guy? Hey, listen, I'm taking Ben on a flyer. This is not somebody I would draft, but maybe a waiver wire pickup. We talked off air, Mike. Actually, I'm very big on not drafting two quarterbacks at all, period. None. I just want one quarterback, a good quarterback. Maybe you slip in a Dak Prescott. Maybe you're able to get a Kyler Murray, a Russell Wilson, whatever the case, and then stream a quarterback at the end, wait for the potential. Big Ben, somebody I would wait for on the waiver wire if he slips. If he goes, you're not losing anything because this person might slip as well. Gardner Minshew, I'm a big fan of as well. Top 18 quarterback last year. He's going as quarterback 28 this year. I think Gardner Minshew is going to be somebody that's a viable option whenever your starting quarterback goes down. None of these guys I'm looking to start besides possibly Cam Newton. And then also Matt Stafford is somebody I think can blow up this year once again. And he has some of the best fantasy value and output that we've seen in quarterbacks in a long time.
I think that's a very good strategy for snake drafts. But when it comes to auction leagues, and you want to pick up a player for $1 or $2 or $3, getting somebody like an Andy Dalton or a Jameis Winston as your backup is fantastic, okay? Here's the thing. Dak Prescott has never missed a game, which means he could be due for an injury. Just a matter of time.
What a jerk. What a guy.
Hey, it's football, right? They're not playing two-hand touch. It's tackle football, right? Drew Brees missed some games last year because of injury. So here's the way that I look at it, okay? If I have a backup quarterback on my roster, just in case someone gets hurt, tell me this, Poppy. Here's the thing. Let's say Drew Brees gets hurt.
Right.
And we have Jameis Winston as a quarterback, and he has Michael Thomas. He has Alvin Kamara. They're rocking and rolling. Tell me you wouldn't start Jameis Winston.
Oh, 1,000%. The guy had the most yards, period, in the league last year and was leading fantasy football teams. But also, can you not agree that he's also extremely inconsistent, though?
Well, true. But let me ask you this. Where would he rank in the top 15 if he was suddenly the starter of the Saints?
Oh, he'd be in the top 8, top 7 easily.
Where would Andy Dalton be
Oh,
if Dak went down and he had Zeke, he had Pollard, he had Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Blake Jarwin? Are you telling me he wouldn't be a top 10 quarterback?
For that week and the weeks to come, I absolutely believe he is a fringe top 10 quarterback. I think with the targets, you're absolutely right. It's why wouldn't he be? But then again, I don't know what type of shape Andy Dalton's in. We've seen no preseason. I don't know what he's doing on his end, but I agree with you. Andy Dalton could be a top 10 quarterback, so that's somebody to think of when it comes to those auction drafts as well. Now, when we're talking running back, dude, this is a very, very narrow position. This position, you're talking, if we're looking at tiers, the tier 1 running backs are Kamara, Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. Maybe you can throw in a Derrick Henry in there, whatever the case. But after that, there is a drop-off dramatically in running back talent, production, and fantasy value. Now, we saw last year Aaron Jones absolutely dominant. We're probably going to expect a regression in touchdowns. 16 touchdowns is a lot to get in a second year again. So, what are you thinking for running back sleepers? Some people are dying for some running back sleepers. What are you thinking on your end?
Well, there's 3 in particular. So we talked about with quarterbacks how do not go with the name. The name does not necessarily mean something. And the same goes for running backs as well. The 3 small names that I have that can put up big numbers are Devin Singletary, Kenyan Drake, and Ronald Jones II. Okay, so Devin Singletary of Buffalo, I have gone on record. I will die on this hill, die on this mountain, that Devin Singletary is a fantasy god, right? He had almost 1,000 yards last year, playing behind Frank Gore. Frank Gore ain't there anymore. So Devin Singletary is small back. He's 5'7", but the fact of the matter is that he's that shifty back. He's very Shady McCoy-ish from back in the day.
I feel that.
I think he's going to be fantastic. Kenyan Drake, oh my God. When he was traded to the Cardinals last year, mid-season trade, that very rarely happens. He had over 800 yards of total yards in those 8 games he played for the Cards, and he had several touchdowns. I think it was something like 8 touchdowns in that time frame. So I look at him and I think, you know what, that's a number 1 back as well. Ronald Jones II, the reason why I say him is because he's not splitting carries as much this upcoming season, but beyond that, no one's going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at Brady, throwing it to Gronk, throwing it to Evans, throwing it to Godwin, Cameron Brate. He's going to be able to – he's not going to have 8 in the box. That's just not going to happen. So I think Jones can have some pretty good yards. And then my last 2 for sleepers, this is, again, if somebody gets hurt. Just like Jameis could be a star again, a fantasy star if Drew Brees goes down.
I know who you're saying.
Just like Dalton could be a fantasy star if Dak goes down. Kareem Hunt, Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Pollard could be a top 10 back if something happened to Zeke. He's going to be good on his own anyway.
What do you think about Madison backing up Dalvin Cook? I know Dalvin Cook obviously has a lot of injuries too with my Minnesota Vikings.
Very much the same way. I mean, they like to air it out. Dalvin Cook is a wonderful talent, man. He's a top 4 back easily if he was never getting hurt. But he seems to miss 2, 3, or 4 games a year. Having a backup for him, if you draft Dalvin Cook, most likely you should get his backup as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is something that you should definitely look at. Now, don't draft those handcuffs too early. Obviously, be water. Let it kind of flow to you. Let it kind of work with you. Work with your draft. See what people are doing. My top 5 are number 1, David Montgomery. The dude did not get as much fancy points as we hoped. He only had 170, but the touches were there, dude. They were giving him 15 touches a game, 17 touches a game. We're looking for touchdown value. We're looking for a bounce-back season. David Montgomery is going in the 6th round. I'm getting him in every single draft. No problem. Nobody wants him. He has no name value, really. So he's a very good sleeper pick. David Johnson, another late-round flyer. David Johnson's going to get the work in Houston. He has so much potential in Houston. You have Deshaun Watson there. David Johnson obviously is years away from that crazy fantasy value output he put in 2016, and the next year he went like number 1 and was a bust. But you can get David Johnson now in the 3rd, 4th round. I mean, why not? If you could get him as a running back 3, or if you're going heavy running back, or maybe even a running back 2 and pick up another guy like David Montgomery later on, it's a fine pick to go with if you're going to take some good wide receivers or whatever the case. The biggest thing is, guys, running backs are going to go off the board so fast. This is a very narrow line position. It's not very deep, so you're not going to get as much where you're going to get a lot of wide receivers, a lot of tight ends, a lot of quarterbacks. Next, Kenyan Drake, just like you. The output's there. The work's there. He's in a top 5, top 8 offense. Come on, dude. Kenyan Drake's an easy gimme if he's still there in the draft. Jordan Howard for Miami. Bro.
Wow.
Come on now. Touchdown machine is going to get the goal line work. He's going to score you some touchdowns. Very much Aaron Jones-esque if he's able to be out. Breida gets hurt a lot, so I think Jordan Howard's a safe pick if you can get him in those late round flyers, like around 8, around 9, around 7, something like that. I'd be perfectly happy getting him again as a running back 3 or running back 4, whatever the case. And then one sleeper dude that I do not know if it's on anybody's radar, but I'm taking him in every draft. No problem. It's never failed. Antonio Gibson with the Washington football team. Amazing, talented rookie. You're only trying to beat out Adrian Peterson. Come on. How much does Adrian Peterson have left? Antonio Gibson is fast. He's shifty. Darius Geis is now released. So now that running back is really opening for the Washington football team when they don't have no quarterback, really. I mean, the running back is going to play a huge part. The only person you have on that team that's going to give you fantasy points is Terry McLaurin. If Antonio Gibson takes over, that might be a very solid pick, and he is going late. I mean, late, round 9, round 8. Just take a flyer on him if you have already 3 solidified backs. And another thing to pay attention to before we get into it, because we're talking in the next segment about our draft tips and tricks, make sure that these people do not have the same bye weeks. Rookie players make this mistake all the time. You need to have some consensus of who's going to fill in for your running backs, fill in for your wide receivers on bye weeks. Quarterbacks and tight ends, you can stream them. Defenses, you can stream them. Kickers, stream them. But running backs and wide receivers, you need to make sure you're not stacking too many people on the same bye week. I did a mock draft, and I think I took I took Derrick Henry and another running back, and I believe they were both on week 11 bye weeks. I made that mistake. I was just excited to get going. You got to make sure you're not stacking up too many people on those bye weeks, because if you do, you are absolutely screwed, my friend. So, Michael, what do you think about the top 5 consensus we're doing for sleepers? Obviously, we have wide receivers and tight ends coming at the last segment. We're talking tips and tricks next, but solid picks, I think, for people to be looking out for.
Most definitely, and it's especially if your league has a flex position.
Yes.
Because if you can start that 3rd running back, you may not want a Ronald Jones a second to be your 2nd running back, but if he's your flex player, it's a very good pickup. A lot of these players that we're talking about here. Here's the thing, man. The draft is coming up really quickly. We're about 2 weeks away from when we should be drafting, and Brandon, we have a draft that we're trying to get going.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We do have a draft we're trying to get going. We're looking to do a 10-team PPR league, possibly even a 12, maybe most likely a 12-team PPR league, and then maybe a auction draft as well, because I've never done one. So we can think about doing something like that. If you are interested, please hit us up at Big Papi Brandon M or at Ginobili Forever on Twitter, or hit up at ESPN_SA. But next, we're talking tips, tricks of the trade to win your fantasy league. Keep it locked, 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, and on the go at ESPNSA.com.
San Antonio has 2 Hop.E locations. Hi, I'm Steve Foster, one at the Rim and the new location at the Vineyard, 1301 North Loop 1604 West, and the initial San Antonio location at 17623 La Cantera Parkway, Suite 101 at the Rim. Different and delicious burgers with fresh and all-natural ingredients. Hop.E also has handcrafted milkshakes and hand-cut Kennebuck fries. So get to a Hop.E in San Antonio. When burger is life, life is awesome.
Work at home. Work out at home. Second period math at home. Date night at home. Lately, we're doing a lot more at home, which means we're doing a lot less driving. With pay-per-mile car insurance from Allstate, you get the same reliable coverage you'd expect, but only pay for the miles you drive. Drive less, save more with Allstate. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote.
Price based on driving behaviors and includes daily rates subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and its affiliates.
Using an overpriced trash bag?
Pricey, pricey, pricey!
A bag that breaks?
Whippy, whippy, whippy!
Or a smelly bag?
Stinky, stinky, stinky!
You gotta snag Hefty's Ultra Strong Trash Bag. Always at an ultra low price.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
It has Arm & Hammer odor control, so your nose and your wallet will be
happy, happy, happy!
Hefty Ultra Strong Trash Bags. Hefty strong all day long.
Hefty, hefty, hefty!
When you have trouble sleeping, it's tough. When kids have trouble sleeping...
Mom, I can't sleep. Dad, just one more story?
For nights like this, try Vicks Pure Z's Kids. Our great-tasting gummies are specially formulated for kids with a unique blend of botanicals and a low dose of melatonin to support their natural sleep cycle. Best of all, they're drug-free and non-habit forming. Help your child fall asleep naturally with Pure Z's Kids Gummies. Consult with a doctor before use. For ages 4 and up.
You can have your favorite ballpark concessions in your own backyard with Rico's Nachos. Enjoy Rico's Nachos at your next family movie night, game night, backyard barbecue, pool party, or other fun occasion at home. Rico's Nacho Chips have maximum crunch factor and are never soggy. The nacho cheese sauce stays smooth and creamy no matter what the temperature. Rico's products are available at H-E-B, Walmart, and other grocery and club stores. Visit ricos.com for more info. Rico's, how to nacho.
I'm Dr. Cecilia Burrington. If you're among the 40% of Americans 50 and older not getting tested for colorectal cancer, you're out of excuses. The government will now require insurance companies to cover virtual colonoscopies and other less invasive tests. Talk to your doctor to see which of these tests is right for you. Don't be one of the 50,000 Americans to die from a largely preventable disease. For more information on virtual colonoscopy, visit radiologyinfo.org.
What's happening, San Antonio? I hope you guys are having a beautiful Sunday. We are here live. This is the Fantasy God Show. I'm Brandon Medina. That's Michael Jimenez. We are talking fantasy tips and tricks for your draft. If you have something to add into this, though, talk to us. Let's have a conversation, baby. Call in the Kielbasa Bacon phone lines, 210-656-ESPN. Once again, that's 210-656-3776. We are talking tips and tricks. Michael, let's lead the way, my man. What are your tips and tricks this year for the draft process, stuff like that?
Well, my draft process this year is really just I'm going to hit up Twitter all day long, all night long. That's a huge, huge, huge advantage for those who go on Twitter and start following the beat writers for the Seattle Seahawks, the beat writers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just start collecting all of those. Start reading these articles about them. I tended to stray away from articles or magazines or anything like that talk about fantasy. I like talking or reading about what the beat writers have to say, start talking about what competition is going on, and that's going to be my number one focus this year when it comes to getting my research done.
Yeah, I completely understand. For me, I am all about mock drafts, so I'm doing a lot of 10-team leagues this year, more than ever. Usually I try to do a 12-team and a 14-team, but a lot of 10-team leagues this year. And I have done a mock draft at every single position from 1 through 10 just to make sure I know what I'm getting, what I'm looking for. And the reason for mock drafting, Mike, I know we talked off air, you're not really big on mock drafting, you said. You said you don't really do it as much.
I've done it before, but it's not something that I do normally. I'll sometimes come across people's mock drafts, like the results of them. And the whole point is to see what the average draft position is going to be for a particular player, right? And I guess part of the strategy is thinking, okay, if I want to get this sleeper player, where is he normally going? Because you don't want to overshoot your target there. You don't want to draft him at 6 when you could have gotten him at 9, right? So that's what we're looking at here. But how do you do it? Like, what websites do you go to, or how does this all work for you?
Yeah, for me, I am all about, obviously, I play on ESPN. I play ESPN for daily fantasy and regular fantasy football for ESPN. And for me, I like looking at decision-making processes of, let's say I do take a wide receiver in the first round. Let's say Michael Thomas is there and I'm pick 6. That's a tough pick to pass up. You know what I mean? That is a tough pick to pass up because the output Michael Thomas is going to be giving you might be double what a running back would give you, or might be, just matching the exact same that maybe Christian McCaffrey does one a week, or Saquon Barkley. You're getting a top 7 player in the league when it comes to Michael Thomas in your team. So I look at stuff like that. Somebody I'm having a lot of trouble with is, let's say I'm pick 9 in a 10-team league or even a 12-team league. Pick 8, 9, and 10, I'm not a fan of, dude, because by then you're making decisions that I feel like are not going correctly with the ADP, which means average draft projection. You're making decisions on Dalvin Cook and everybody's gone. So now you're taking Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Kenyan Drake. Maybe you're taking people who are not at that ADP, who maybe you can get at round 2. But if it's a snake draft, you're gonna have to wait. I mean, you're gonna go back to back right there if you're pick 10 or pick 12, regardless of how many people in your league. But those pick 8 through 10, you have slim pickings when it comes to top tier running backs. No, Kamara's not gonna fall that far. Dalvin Cook's not gonna fall that far. So with that, I think for me, I'm having a lot of trouble of kind of gauging who's the best running back to take, depending on the position I'm in, but also in round 2, a lot of the times what's happened to me, Mike, and I'm sure you'll see this in your own draft and maybe in our draft, which we're going to be doing with fans, but Julio Jones is falling into that mid-round 2. And so for round 2, if you're somebody that has a solid running back, Julio Jones is going to be incredible. You talk about consistency, 7 top 7 finishes in the past 6 seasons. The dude is not going to play games. I mean, in the past 7 seasons, he has had, I think he was ranked 2nd and then 4th and then 5th and then 2nd and then 6th and then 5th. The consistency is there. You're going to get a top tier wide receiver. So I think for me, I'm all about playing the game of this isn't real. This isn't going to affect me. How can I practice what I preach and actually try to put in strategies of, let's say I go wide receiver, running back, or 3 running backs out the gate the first 3 rounds, or maybe I take Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. How does that affect my team in the long run so that when it comes to that real-time experience, I'm ready for anything?
Strategy sometimes goes out the door when those 2 players you want get drafted right in front of you.
Yes.
And here's the thing. You mentioned being the last player of the draft and having that number 12, 13 pick. I hate being on the edges. I hate being the 1 or 2 pick. I hate being 12 or 13. Get me around 5, 6, or 7.
I agree.
It makes life easier because you can say, oh, well, here are these 5 or 6 best players, and you just basically take which one is left over. That's the position I hope to be in a draft. One of the things that I liked what you talked about was Michael Thomas being there at number 7. Conventional wisdom says you take a running back. Because running backs go off the board. But you look over and it's like, man, that's Michael Thomas. That's a 1,700-yard receiving, 130 reception player. If you're in a PPR league, you take Michael Thomas at that position. If you're in a standard league, you just keep going with the running backs. Okay, you just draft a running back at that point. But the whole point of all this, the whole process or strategy is looking at what is their production in comparison to what you would be getting later on down the road. If you don't get Michael Thomas, but you get, let's just say a Mike Evans, right? Still a really good player, but is there a really big drop-off? You got to measure that drop-off, which is why it's important to pay attention to the tiers of players. There are probably 2 Tier 1 quarterbacks. There's probably about 5 quarterbacks that are in Tier 2. And then you kind of take a look at that, and I'm looking at the top tiers and wanting to stay within those. And if that means getting a Michael Thomas at 7 and saying, great, I'm going to have only the 12th best running back now, then that's just something that you have to do because his production is so great compared to the alternative that, you just got to have to roll with it. It just falls to you.
Well, and that's the thing. It's all about sacrifice. You know what I mean? What are you willing to give for somebody like a Michael Thomas or a Julio Jones? For me this year, it's a year we've never really experienced before, ever, right? COVID-19 has thrown a wrench in everything. With fantasy football, it's no different. I really am steering away from players that have new coaches or a new offense or whatever the case. You talk about somebody, right now I'm looking at the average draft position for, let's say, the top 12. McCaffrey, number 1, Barkley, number 2, Zeke Elliott. Michael Thomas, Kamara, and Dalvin Cook are kind of in that 4, 5, and 6 usually, depending. And then you got Derrick Henry, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, and Joe Mixon. I don't want Joe Mixon. He's ruined his trust with me over years. But then you have a DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it's a whole new offense. He's going to get tons of targets, and I'm sure he'll be a top 5 wide receiver. My thing is, would I take him over a Julio Jones? Absolutely not.
Okay, so I completely agree with you when it comes to not wanting to have players from a first-year coach, right? The only exception that I will have is the Dallas Cowboys, because I think Dak's still going to have a good year and Zeke's going to have a good year because they kept their offensive coordinator. There's still some continuity, some consistency with what they're doing. But we're looking at teams like Carolina. Christian McCaffrey should be the number 1 player off the board or the number 2 player off the board in every league. The thing is that I have a hard time believing he's going to duplicate the yards and the production that he had last year.
Yeah.
He can still be the number 1 running back in the league, but I don't think he's going to be doing 2,500 yards like he did last year. He's going to maybe do 1,900, which is still great. It's still great. But I just think that we'd be foolish to think that someone who has a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, a new head coach, all the changes being made, no preseason games, COVID, all of the different things going on, that suddenly Christian McCaffrey is going to have the same year he had last year. Not buying it. Not buying it at all.
I understand, and I think in fantasy football, before we get to our next segment, in fantasy football, guys, when you're drafting, maybe you're drafting today, maybe you're drafting next week or the week after, just follow this simple advice. Me and Mike live by it. We die by it. Me and Michael love to gamble, and when you gamble, all you think about is what is most likely to happen. Is Christian McCaffrey most likely to do exactly what he did last year or regress a little bit? Is Aaron Jones going to score 16 touchdowns and Derrick Henry scored 16 touchdowns? Or are they going to regress a little bit? You got to really put into perspective that, and then really it kind of makes your draft a lot simpler, a lot better for you. And I think for a fantasy football team, you're going to come out with a better team when you look at what is more likely to happen. This player, absolutely blows up in year 2, year 3, or this player who was very good and consistent last year stays consistent. Think about what's most likely to happen, and you'll win your league. But coming up, we have our top wide receivers and top 10 tight end sleepers. You do not want to miss it. Don't sleep on it. Come on now. This is the fantasy show. This is the Fantasy Gods, ESPN San Antonio 94.5 FM, 1250 AM, and on the go at ESPNSA.com.
Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill serves great cooking with an innovative take on classic American comfort food. For over 10 years now, Chuck and Larry have delighted appetites and presented one of the best Sunday brunches ever at 303 Red River in Austin. Go by and enjoy some corn dog shrimp, cornflake chicken salad, broiled rainbow trout, and all my favorites and more. Moonshine classic American comfort food. And of course, when you see Chuck and Larry, tell them Foss said hello. Moonshine Patio Bar and Grill.
At Mountain Dew, we support the best and baddest disaster relief group in America, Team Rubicon. To show our support of Team Rubicon, Mountain Dew put in $1 million. And now you can help Team Rubicon too. Look for specially marked Team Rubicon bottles of Mountain Dew, Diet Mountain Dew, and Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. Enter for a chance to win weekly prizes at MountainDewTR.com and donate to Team Rubicon. You'll earn exclusive rewards when you do. No purchase necessary. U.S. residents 18 and older. Subject to rules at MountainDewTR.com. Ends 10/3/2020.
Okay, moms and dads, you gotta check this out. Target has all the easiest ways to check off your kids' entire list and get them ready for school. Like Drive Up. Order ahead and Target will load your school order right into your car's trunk. No contact required. Check. Or my personal favorite, Target School List Assist. Check off your kids' actual class list in a click and have it shipped to your door. Check and check. This year, check everything off the list with easy and contactless ways to get ready for school. Only at Target. Restrictions may apply.
The latest on the Houston Texans.
Mark Ross, NFL Network analyst, joining us here on ESPN San Antonio. You spent a lot of time in front offices, scouting player personnel. What do you make of what Bill O'Brien is doing right now as GM of the Houston Texans?
Look, when you're in personnel...
That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, okay, next question.
The Blitz, weekdays 4 to 7, 1250 ESPN San Antonio and 94.5 FM.
what if you served and sacrificed for your country, but couldn't get the specialized care, military benefits, and career opportunities you needed? Chris Sullivan was shot and paralyzed in Iraq and now needs our help to get back into life. Paralyzed Veterans of America is on a mission, Mission Able, to help our seriously wounded veterans get the care, benefits, and jobs they've earned. Join the mission now for America's paralyzed veterans at mission-able.com.
San Antonio, how we feeling? Happy Sunday. This is the Fantasy Gods. I'm your man, Brandon Medina, here with my main man, Michael Jimenez. We are talking fantasy football to help you win your league, and it starts with sleepers. Do not sleep on the fact that we're about to give you some of the best draft picks you can possibly look at in the draft or on the waiver wire. Let's talk wide receivers and tight ends. We talked already QBs and running backs, and if you missed last week's show, go to the ESPN Audio Vault at espnsa.com/Audio Vault to hear our top 5 at each position in general. These are the sleepers. So top 5 wide receiver and tight end sleepers. Michael Jimenez, take it away, my man.
Probably my favorite sleeper for a wide receiver this year is a former Texas A&M Aggie, Christian Kirk from Arizona Cardinals. Here's the thing. Christian Kirk, 700 yards last year, had a really good season, suffered an ankle injury middle of the year, so he was hobbled most of it, had missed 3 games. I'm a really big fan of him, and most importantly, Kyler Murray is going to be so much better this year compared to last year. Last year was his breakout year, even better, and now you add Hopkins running routes as well. You have Larry Fitzgerald still on the field. I think Christian Kirk's going to have some room to play, some room to run. I would target him late rounds. I wouldn't say late rounds. He's probably going to be off the board probably as a 30th receiver or so off the board, but he's someone to look at as well. I'm really big on Nicole Hardman as well, Kansas City Chiefs. My thing about him is that he's going the same path that Tyreek Hill had when Hill finally had his big season a few years ago. And when I'm taking a look at Hardman, I'm not a big fan of Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy Watkins is the worst number 2 receiver out there. Fantasy-wise, I can't stand Sammy Watkins. Cannot stand him. He had that huge game in week 1, tricked everybody into picking him up off the waiver wire, and he just wet the bed the rest of the year. But Hardman's going to be big. The one thing to look at for Hardman, Poppy, here's the thing. When Tyreek Hill had his breakout year, they stopped having him as a kick returner. He was a Pro Bowl kick returner.
Right.
They pulled him out, which was a clue, a sign that they were going to have him more involved in the offense. Nicole Hardman made the Pro Bowl last year as a rookie as a kick returner. So take a look. If he's going to be pulled out of that role, then you're going to know.
Phrasing?
I haven't had a phrasing comment like that in a while, so awesome, Dan.
We missed it.
Yeah, but if he is no longer the kick returner for the Chiefs, I'm going to be looking at him. That's going to be a signal to me that he is actually going to be a bigger part of the offense and may have that 1,100, 1,200-yard season. Poppy, give me a couple.
Yeah, I think for me, number 1 on my list, and I think surprisingly enough, I'm not surprised. You are actually more surprised than I am. But Julian Edelman is going to be number 1 on my wide receivers to look at. When you look at where you can get him, dude, he's going as wide receiver 32. He was the wide receiver number 7 in PPR scoring last year. Now, does that mean Tom Brady's a better quarterback than Cam Newton? Absolutely. But Cam Newton has to throw to somebody, and Julian Edelman is the most consistent slot receiver in the league. If it's PPR, you know he's going to get targets. You know he's going to get catches. He can easily be a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside. I think he'd be great for your team, especially if you can get him in those late rounds. He's going in like the 7th round. I mean, it is wild to me. So I think he's one to look at, and somebody going a little bit earlier than him, but still going at wide receiver number 24 and was wide receiver number 11 last year. Devonte Parker's going to murder this season. There is no Allen Hurns. There is no Albert Wilson. There's no wide receivers for Miami besides Devonte Parker. Devonte Parker is going to tear it up. He tore it up last year. I think this is like his 5th year in the season, and he blew up. He had the 11th most fantasy points from week 1 to week 17. He was a steal. He was on every waiver wire last year. Nobody was drafting him. This year, you can get him as a wide receiver 2, and I believe you'd be just fine because everybody who opted out for Miami was a wide receiver. So when you look at somebody like that who got Oh my God, the target share that he got was crazy. Devonte Parker had 128 targets last year. Expect that to even more get boosted. The dude's going to tear it up, so he's my number 2. And then Jamison Crowder is my number 3. I think when you look at consistency, he had 190 points last year. He's looking at 192 this year. Fair. He's going right around the time Julian Edelman is. I think that is another good pick with wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 2 upside. He's going to get plenty of targets. Last year, he had 122 targets, so that's my 3rd. Give me your 4th and 5th, Mike.
Well, actually, I'll give my 3rd, 4th, and 5th. My 3rd one is actually going to be Darius Slayton of the New York Giants.
I like it.
Talk about a waiver wire hero last year. He was a rookie last season, kind of came on, became a starter midway through the season, put up some really solid totals out there. If he had played 16 games, he would have been a 1,000-yard receiver. Excellent player. Daniel Jones coming up, getting better and better every year. He needs to throw it to somebody. So who's the number 1 wideout in New York for the Giants? Is it Auden Tate? I mean, Auden Tate's a solid player. But again, we talked about it earlier. I'd rather have the young guy who's up and coming. As far as other players, if you're in an auction league, let's see here. I think anybody that is basically a receiver right now for the Cincinnati Bengals is going to be some sort of sleeper. So Tyler Boyd had a really breakout year last year. He was a top 20 receiver. I think he can be top 10 now that Joe Burrow is the quarterback there. Burrow's a stud, man. I'm a big believer in him. I'm buying stock in Joe Burrow. But Auden Tate of the Bengals is one that I just look at where if you're in an auction league and you have that just $1 to spend or $2 to spend on a receiver, Auden Tate should be that guy. Had almost 600 yards last season in 10 games. There's a lot of young talent there, a lot of receivers there that are that 25, 22, 23-year-old range. Joe Mixon's in that same age group as well. But, man, Auden Tate, he can play with those guys.
Absolutely. For me, my number 4 and 5 is Hunter Renfrow. Killer slant right there. Killer inside guy that's going to hopefully be getting a lot of targets. Has 71 targets and 49 receptions in only 13 games. So he's going to be doing really, really good PPR stuff. For maybe a bench guy that you can start some weeks when maybe a wide receiver goes down or is out, whatever the case. And then Marquis Brown, Hollywood, baby. You're looking at a wide receiver who's on the best offense probably in football with Lamar Jackson has to throw to somebody. Marquis Brown only played 14 games but had 71 targets and 7 touchdowns. Going to be a touchdown machine. Now, tight ends. Number 1 for me, I feel like it's an easy one. Maybe you have him. Hayden Hurst for Atlanta is going to blow up and tear it up. Matt Ryan loves tight ends. We've seen tight ends flourish in Atlanta all the time. You know this, Mike. But Austin Hooper had 97 targets, 75 receptions, and 6 touchdowns last year. I don't think he gets 97 targets, but 75-ish, 80-ish, I'll take it. I think Hayden Hurst is going to be a very good fantasy value. Coming in at like the 13th round, that's some guy you can wait for. What about you? Who's your number 1, number 2?
Oh, my number 1 sleeper for tight end is Noah Fant from the Denver Broncos. 562 yards receiving last year. Drew Lock is locked in on him. So Noah Fant had a really big end of the year last year. That coincided when Drew Lock was on the field.
Right.
How about Eric Ebron, a blast from the past there?
Wow.
Signed a 2-year deal with the Steelers. Had 13 touchdowns for Indy 2 years ago. Got hurt last year, didn't play, signed with the Steelers. He's going to be their starting tight end. Blake Jarwin, Cowboys. There's no more Jason Witten, so Jarwin should be getting those targets. If you combine their stats last year, tight ends for the Cowboys had over 900 yards receiving. O.J. Howard of the Bucks, oh my God, what a disappointment he was for fantasy owners last year. But again, who does Brady like throwing to? He likes throwing to tight ends. Okay, so Gronk is there, but Gronk always gets hurt. So I would maybe stash him there. And then lastly, another blast from the past, Jack Doyle of the Colts. Phillip Rivers loves throwing the tight ends. Jack Doyle had an awkward season last year because Andrew Luck retired out of nowhere. So I think Jack Doyle will be back as maybe not an elite tight end, but let's just say he'd be a top 12.
Okay, I like that. I actually have Jack Doyle as well. I completely agree. I think that's a great tight end pickup. He's going at tight end number 15, so literally if you're in a 12-team league or a 10-team league, he might be on the waiver wire, or you can get him maybe even in the last round, whatever the case. Maybe you want a good defense. You take them in like the 13th, 14th round, and maybe you can get him later on. So Jack Doyle's one. 2 that I want to take a chance on for sure, I'm taking late round flyers on in multiple leagues, I'm pretty sure, is Mike Gesicki and TJ Hawkinson. Mike Gesicki with Miami is super solid when it comes to, he showed some flashes of potential. Again, no wide receivers over there in Miami. Devonte Parker, Mike Gesicki will get targets. So look for them. He finished in the top 12 last year, looking to finish hopefully in the top 10 this year. TJ Hawkinson was the guy to get on the waiver wire after like week 2, and nothing happened ever.
You were all about him, man.
You're
still on him.
I think he's worth a flyer. Look for him to hopefully get some more targets, get some receptions, and look for the absolute TDs to come, because you look at a guy like that, very big built, like a Rob Gronkowski, a George Kittle, someone like that is going to be dominant, whether it's now or later. I like him. I like Jack Doyle. I like Gesicki. And then I have Hayden Hurst at number 1. But my last one, I think people are sleeping on dramatically. Ready for this?
Let's hear it.
I like Ian Thomas with the Carolina Panthers. I think no Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen had 82 targets last year and was number 15 in fantasy last year. And that's the fact that he's always hurt. He's always pulled out of games. He wasn't doing much. You look at Ian Thomas, young gun out the gate. I think he can truly be a top 12 tight end this year in fantasy.
Noah Fant, man. That's still my guy. Noah Fant, I'm calling it. Pro Bowl season this year.
Okay, solid. Well, anyways, thank you guys so much for joining the Fantasy God Show. My name is Brandon Medina. Hit me up at Big Poppy Brandon M. Hit up Michael Jimenez at Ginobili Forever. We hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. Go kill it. Go draft. Tune in to our show at espnsa.com/audiovote if you missed it. But like always, the fantasy gods always have one thing to let you know, one thing to tell you, and one slogan that we live by. Mr. Michael Jimenez, please tell the people what that slogan is.
May the fantasy gods be with you.
We'll see you later, San Antonio. Peace.